We are live! Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Show Must Go On line. Today's guest is Sam Squeri. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. This is so exciting. We'll get into your origin story in just a second, but I realize it's actually great to intro how we met first, because I think TEDx Broadway is very pleased with what happened with us. So why don't you tell it from your point of view?
Yeah, so TEDx Broadway this year was completely online, which is awesome because I'm usually based in Los Angeles. So it's one of those things that I don't usually get to go out to New York to do. It's only like one day. So I can't usually make that work. But this year was all online. And so people from across the country, across the world were together experiencing like this kind of in-person feeling that you miss, but still virtual. Amazing speakers this year. And it was just really cool. So we met in a breakout room afterwards, because you can do that online, with one of the speakers who was incredible. And so we sort of just hit it off, like talking to him and then talking with you. And then I reached out to you afterward and said, I would love to get to know you better. We're both the curly hair glasses girls. So, you know, gotta represent.
Exactly how I feel, because it's so funny when you see someone in like a little square and you're like, that looks just like me.
Yeah. You're like, which one is me? I don't know.
You look up quickly. Oh, that's me. Mm-hmm. Oh no, that's not me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was really exciting, because with live theater being closed right now and so many things not being able to happen because of the pandemic, it was really nice for TEDx Broadway to still go on. And not only that happened, but to meet someone that you like have this kinship with. And now we're doing this and it just feels like, yes, it worked.
Yeah, they've done their job.
Exactly. Yes. So let's get into your origin story. What got you into theater and wanting to make this a profession for you?
Yeah, so I actually don't think I realized theater could be a career for a very long time. And I feel like I've heard this from other people as well. But because I'm not an actress, so that was never something that I was going to do for like the longer term. And I realized in college, like looking back, that theater has been such a big part of my life, like throughout, even though I wasn't ready to like to make myself a career in theater at that point. But very young origins was like, I have a huge Italian family. Think My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but Italian. That's my family. Crazy aunts, all the above. So I would and a million cousins. So I used to write plays for family holiday parties and make my cousins star in them. And I would like do the light switch and like hang up curtains with the bed sheets. My mom would kill me because I would make a mess. But I made props and, I like directed everything, and it was great. And they were like painful for everyone to watch, I'm sure, in my family. They did not look forward to those, but it was really fun for me. And it was like a way to kill some time between dinner and lunch and, all the meals that you have as an Italian family. So it was really great. And I think like through there, I did it all through school. I was sometimes on stage, but I didn't really like that. So sometimes backstage, like through high school, and then into college, I got really involved with a student-run musical theater organization on my campus, and so great to actually like make things yourself, because up to that point you're sort of just like like listening to the teacher, but it was everyone like student directed, student stage managed, everything was like all done by students, which is so wonderful. And then still didn't think that was my career. I had written my college essay about theater. Like the amount that I love theater, my sister will tell you, like I'm the one that people phone a friend if they have questions about theater. I'm sure you're the same way. You know what I mean? Like if you're like the Jeopardy person that got the answer wrong the other day about like, I would have gotten it right. That's an easy one. That was a layup. Anyway. No, they can get all the other questions right that I would get wrong though. But anyway, so yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And then coming out of school, I got a job with Comcast NBC Universal in this like rotational finance program that they had. Again, like not actually theater related, but then sort of it was still like media, and I love storytelling in general. So I was like, okay, I'll go work in like TV finance for a little bit. And then through this rotational program, I found the team that I still work on actually 2 years later. And it's the Universal Theatrical Group. So Universal, most people don't know this, own Wicked, the Broadway musical, which is a surprise. And so similar to the much larger presence of Disney on Broadway that people are aware of, like we do invest in shows and we license shows and that sort of thing, because you have a whole catalog of movie titles and all that kind of thing. So it's been a really fun experience to have that side of the world now. So now like my finance brain and theater brain are colliding in my job, which is really exciting. Yeah, I think that I've talked enough now.
No, that's perfect. And I love hearing these stories of people, I mean, similar to me, that we love theater, but we're not actors. So how can we still make this part of our lives, but find it in a different avenue that really works for us? And I love hearing, you're like, well, I love it, but it's not really my job. And this, but not that. And you kind of like grow into whatever fits best. And that's kind of life in general, right? That you have to see different avenues to find what's the best journey for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm like so thrilled when I kind of stumbled upon this group and didn't know it was there. And my boss was like, you actually like theater? Because I'm in LA. So you actually like theater? She's like, everyone here likes film. We hadn't found a theater person. And so they're like, come here. And I was like, okay, like, let's do it. Because I actually do like theater. So I care about what I'm working on. And it's not just like, I wish I could be doing film, but I'm doing theater. So yeah, it's been fun.
That's perfect that you really filled both of the needs for you and the company.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
Exactly. A win-win happening right now is that my dog Slimbo is outside enjoying the beautiful weather with snow on the ground, but unfortunately there's a little bit of a bark going on here. So hopefully it's not too distracting, but I am muting my mic in between.
I love dogs. It's okay. You can bring them in.
Perfect. Yeah. I even tried this little thing, this trick where I have a treat for him for whenever he's feeling like, you know what, I could use a little treat, and maybe he'll stop barking. But you know what? We're in quarantine. We're in a pandemic. Who cares?
It's fine. Hot take, the musical Cats would have been better if it was about dogs. Just saying. You heard it here.
I would watch that and sing it all the time. We do actually, when we're out in the field or whatnot, I start singing like different musical songs, but I like change the lyrics to fit Slimbo. So, you know, get ready. Something's coming your way.
Oh my gosh. My sister always laughed at me because I'm not a runner. So just to preface this, but my family, we all together ran the New York Marathon a couple years ago. Again, not a runner. So like, don't be impressed. But
even more impressed.
How the way we got through it, like at the last mile, I would start singing 1 mile more, like, and just, I would make up all these verses to Les Mis, but fitting to how horrible our run was. Like it was, I'm proud of myself for that moment. So yeah, that was a good time.
Once again, I feel very similar.
Yes.
So let's get into this awesome part of your recent jobs and your recent journey with the Ravages, which is just such a fun thing. Why don't you intro it and then we'll play the video?
Sure. Yeah. So my job, my real life job that pays me money is lovely, but it's also very like finance and I want to say like more producer-y, general manager-y driven, if that helps people in the industry. So that is fun and exciting, but I do miss the more creative part of my brain as well. So while I'm in LA, I've joined a theater company and I'm actually now on the artistic management committee of said theater company, Theater of Note in Los Angeles. Shout out to them. They're so lovely. And so they are a small, like intimate theater company. The theater scene in LA is great because there's so many actors in LA that are just like looking to do anything and just want to like create theater while they're not on sets. So it's so wonderful. And with them, throughout the pandemic, we've been trying to do virtual programming, and it's always really difficult because I'm sort of sick of looking at a screen. I'm sure you feel the same way because it's just all day at my job, and then I come back and we're watching Netflix or whatever it is. So so instead of doing another Zoom theater piece, which we've done plenty of those too, we decided to do a podcast. So really exciting. The Ravages, we have our lovely playwright, William Nedved. He submitted this piece to us actually to be done in person, but we read through it and we're like, this would be really, really fun to try to do a podcast because as you'll hear about in this little promo trailer, and maybe if you listen to it, the podcast takes place in this really imaginative world that I think is actually better suited as a podcast, maybe because it's like what your imagination can come up with is better than anything that we could put in front of you on stage. So I directed and helped co-produce this podcast with Theater of Note. So we can talk about it more later, but run the promo. Is that a good intro? I don't know.
There's nothing that I can show you that would be as dramatic or as believable as something that you can imagine.
Hi, my name is Sam Squeri, and I'm the director and co-producer of Theater of Note's podcast presentation of The Ravages, A Love Story by William Nesbit. This is such an interesting piece to work on as a director because Will's written it so these two characters could be played by anyone, and I love that.
Once I came up with the formal conceit of the play, that it would consist solely of dialogue, there'd be no stage direction, no character descriptions, and that the actors would switch roles at performances, I knew exactly what I wanted to explore in this play.
We were looking for the actors. We were really searching for people who found different parts of themselves in each of the two roles, whether it be the actor or the stranger. And we were also looking for people whose voices were really distinct from each other and would sound really great together and have good audio chemistry, if that's a thing.
All right, I will start my recording.
And Alicia will start in 3, 2, 1.
What drew me to this piece was the fact that it is so much of an enigma. It is something that everybody will take something from it that will be completely different and still completely right.
For me, The Ravages is a story about self-discovery and rediscovery through a lot of abstract situations. It really hits on that chord.
Something really exciting about this play is the idea that the two actors switch roles.
Want to call it? Anyone feel strongly about heads or tails?
So if done in person, what would happen is you would determine which actor plays which role. We still wanted to keep that spontaneity in it, but maybe give the audience some of that choice. So the way we're going to do the podcast is we're going to have a heads version and a tails version, so the audience can flip a coin and determine which version they should listen to.
Take 1. Alicia as the actor, Max as a stranger. We're doing it. Here we go.
It was really wonderful. It was wonderful being able to really imagine this place and bring it to life using just our voices. And then we got to talking.
And what did I say?
Well, you said,
Tell me what
"Tell
you
me
remember."
what you remember.
When you're on stage, there's so much you can express just with your body and with your face. A touch can mean a lot. We didn't have that. It was purely our voices.
That's the crisis?
I'm so glad you get me.
That's why I'm wasting my morning?
We'll get through this together.
Why telling this story is important to me right now is connection. That's what we need right now. We need to connect with each other. And that's what both the actor and the stranger are searching for, some type of connection.
He's trying to shed himself of that title of stranger by finding somebody who knows him, being known and belonging. It's a total disconnect, you know? It's like he speaks in riddles.
And she speaks in rhymes. Oh, I hear you.
I'm incredibly grateful to Theater of Note for premiering The Ravages in what I think is the play's purest form, an audio drama.
It's almost genreless. It's an adventure, it's a thriller, it's a love story, it's a comedy, it's a drama, it's a horror.
It's a story of life, and we're trying to figure out, who am I and what am I supposed to be doing?
There will certainly be an adventure. There will be danger.
Go listen to The Ravages. It's going to be a lot of fun. It premieres on February 14th, 2021. Wherever you listen to podcasts, we're going to make that happen. So, yeah, come listen. Woohoo! Hey.
Yay! That was wonderful.
Yeah, shout out to Doug Ryan who put that together for us, and Eleanor Gunn, who's my co-producer and found the lovely Doug. It's a very ragtag team of people that put this together. And I think one of the coolest things is we never, like, some of us have never even met before. And we never met, like, it was all done completely virtually. So our recording session was like, we were looking at each other over Zoom, but then their microphones were recording on their computers, and they'd send the audio. This is like, I don't recommend this to anyone. They would send the audio file to our sound designer, Hawk, who would like listen to it and say, mostly sounds okay. I'll listen to the full hour-long thing later, but like sounds good. And it ended up working out. So yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And our two actors, so you saw on there, Alicia Brady and Max Lawrence, completely phenomenal, and so blessed to have them work on this project with us, because like they were talking about, there's 2 different characters that each of them played, because the way it works is you flip a coin. So if it's heads, one of them plays this and the other one plays the other, and then you flip flop. So really challenging for them to try to find different interpretations of each character and not like copy the other person, and make it their own, which I think they both did a stunning job of. But also the fact that it's just them alone in their room we turned their cameras off while they were practicing too, because they're sort of cheating and looking at each other. So like it's just you alone, and like all you hear is your fellow actor's voice. And I'm not an actor, but I think that would be very challenging for someone usually used to the stage as well, where you have like that touch and that emotion and feeling in someone's face. So it was just incredible to work on. And I love how it turned out. I think, we all pulled it together and it came out last Saturday, and nothing but good things so far we've heard. So yeah.
It was so much fun. Yeah. I listened to both versions because I thought it would be interesting to like compare and contrast. So it's very interesting idea to like, hear the same story told by 2 different versions, but the same voices flipped, like you're saying. But to be able to have that journey, and each actor, I thought, really did a strong job of making each role believable in their own right, and then telling that story in full. Pause. I did it 2 days apart, so I recommend doing that, so that it's not just like completely the same. It's really fun. It's a choose your own adventure story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other cool thing about, like I sort of talked about it in that video, but the fact that it's written for any 2 people to play. If you read the script, there are no stage directions, there's nothing. So that was actually like casting it was one of the hardest parts about it, because it's like, how do we pick who these 2 people are? They have to like have really great audio chemistry again together. And like, we want their voices to shine through. And I think like I told my assistant director Julie in our casting session of like, okay, these 2 I love. When they did their callback, I was like, their chemistry was so great, and like I would be happy tomorrow if they read this, and like that was how we had the podcast. And the amount of like growth that they had still through the rehearsal process was unbelievable. So yeah, really, really excited of how it turned out.
And I don't know how other people have been listening to it, because I think there's a value in both, like maybe sitting down or laying down in the dark and just like letting your imagination do it that way, or how I did it, which was walking around the field with Slim, because it's kind of nice. You're like walking and you're getting the story and you're kind of imagining where they are at each part. How do you recommend it, or do you just say do whatever's best? I mean, listen however you will or can.
I think something we've actually talked about as a theater company, LA is sort of hit a little bit harder by COVID more recently. But something we'd like to do is actually like create a walk for people. So because it's sort of an adventure story, and when all of you go listen to it, it's 2 people like walking through this other sort of world, if you will. And so when you're walking along with them, I think it's really cool, and it feels more like, even more so than if you're just like sitting in bed, like you're on this journey with them. And it feels really intimate. So I think walking is like a great way to listen to it, but doing the dishes, like however you need to listen to it, just go listen to it, because it's an hour. It's like a great little time. It's a fun story. Mayhem ensues.
Funny you should say that, because when I was finishing up the second round of it, I was doing the dishes.
There you go. However you consume podcasts. I think my boyfriend likes like listening to them when he's working out and that sort of thing. So,
yeah.
I wouldn't like change your whole thing. That's the cool thing about podcasts too, because it's on your own time. So even if you don't have a full hour to listen, you can like pause and come back to it later, or do whatever you need to. I know some people also listen to it at like multiple times speed. I don't know if I would recommend that. I haven't listened to it at like 1.5, which is how I usually listen to podcasts, but I think it might sound a little crazy. So yeah, for the full effect, 1 time speed. But if you got to do what you got to do, I won't judge you.
That's fair. Do you have a preference of which side you listen to? Maybe first, I'll say, I won't even say, like, do you have a preference of sides?
Yeah, that's everyone's first question when they ask me. I've had a lot of friends say, like, which one should I listen to? I don't have a preference. I think that they're both equally great. Just, I guess the one that I listened to first, the one we worked off of is like what the definitive version for me is the Heads version, because we like started with that and then sort of tried to take a lot of that and put on the Tails version when we were doing the editing. But to be honest, that really happened because we flipped a coin the very first day of rehearsal to do our cold read, and it was heads, and so we sort of stuck with that through our schedule where we did heads first and then did tails. But that, needless to say, tails is my co-producer's favorite version, so it really depends. Did you have a favorite as you were listening to them?
So I wouldn't say like a favorite, but I did listen to heads first. Just there was some, I didn't actually have a coin, but it just like felt right to listen to the heads first. And so that to me was like the definitive version. And then the tails version was almost like an alt version, which was very cool as well. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're both great. And actually my actors won't tell me which characters are their favorite, but I think they both have favorites too. So I'm interested to see what other people think.
Yes. I also really agree about the audio chemistry and how different their voices are. I mean, in so many ways, of course, like having that accent adds a lot to it. But it's true that when you're listening to a podcast or an audio play or anything that really there's no visual aspect to help differentiate, that's huge. That's a huge key to make
sure. People don't realize. Like, I've listened to so many audio dramas or whatever, and it's just like they sound the same. You don't know who's talking. It's just like, all right, you lost me because you're arguing with yourself. So I don't know.
Yeah. But I appreciate that y'all put so much time and effort and consciousness into that aspect of the play that it wasn't just like an afterthought, because it shines through.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. So let's talk a little bit more about your other projects, and then we can wrap up if anyone has questions at the end. Eva, hello. I see you coming in from Denmark, I believe. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, international.
Very cool. Yeah, so I guess speaking of Denmark, I mean, aside from like my personal projects, I'm doing another, not related to Denmark, I'm doing another podcast play coming up in the summer, which is exciting. But speaking of Denmark, so I'll get to that one. The Prince of Egypt was sort of my last pre-COVID project. And so it opened in the West End on February 25th officially, which was about 2 weeks before it got shut down due to COVID. So I spent all of February in London with that. So as part of Universal, it's actually like a licensed production for us, but I worked really closely with their general manager for opening night planning and just sort of like getting a sense of how they're doing, and they're doing great. And then COVID hit, so that's just a shame. But really hoping to bring it back after COVID. So we'll see how the West End is shaping up. But Prince of Egypt, so going back to Denmark, Prince of Egypt actually had its first international production in Denmark at Tuacahn, that's Utah. It was in Copenhagen, I think. Yes, it has many different resurrections, but it's been in Denmark, so maybe you've seen it. But the most recent iteration is the West End version, and it was such a cool project to be a part of. That's an album as like a musical theater nerd myself that I love listening to on repeat. Yes. So highly recommend. That album is also out wherever you listen to albums. I do Spotify, but to each their own. I think they're launching like the actual CD soon as well, if they haven't already. So go get yourself a hard copy, support the arts because they need to reopen. So yeah, but it's such a cool show. And I hope that everyone runs to it when it reopens, because that was actually my first like big first class, if you will, show to be a part of, and to see it from like the first final dress rehearsal to opening to the first preview, and then throughout previews to opening night, which is like such a cool transformation. And I think even like I highly recommend going to previews. This is something that I don't think people take advantage of enough, but it's really cool to like, I just got chills thinking about it. But I think even more than opening night, the first preview was the most electric audience that I've ever been a part of, because it was electric for the actors on stage and the whole crew, because they had never done this in front of an audience ever before. And the audience was like no one had ever seen this. So they were the first ones to experience it. And it was just magic. Like, that's all I can describe it as. So many chills are running through my body right now. But it was so, so beautiful. And it was funny because the director, Scott Schwartz, came out into the audience like prior to the thing and was like, "We haven't run this straight through ever. You guys are the first to experience this. So if we have to stop, I'm sorry, but we'll do our best." And I think that it just makes it so much more human. And I think that's one of the cool things about like virtual theater, in a sense of you feel more connected, that these people are not just like it's happening live in front of you, and your dog comes into the screen, and like things can go wrong. And that's what's wonderful about live theater, I think, in general, like over scripted like television and movies and things, that it's just this element of like human that's part of it, that's like, who knows, someone could fall down and they're gonna have to get up and figure it out. And yeah, so it was so cool to see that whole transformation, and I really, really, truly hope that show is able to reopen. So go support, go listen to their album, go buy the thing, go see it when it reopens, all that.
Yeah, I really hope that they come back and that West End comes back thriving, and Broadway and LA, because there's so many beautiful aspects of live theater that are different in every stage and in every location. Yes. And I love what you're saying about going to previews, and especially first preview, because that's kind of become my thing, because I went to first preview, let's see, Be More Chill, Jagged Little Pill. I was supposed to go to Beetlejuice, but I gave that to a friend, and I went to see The Lightning Thief at the Beacon. So many shows.
So many. And I think the cool thing too is you're not tainted by what other people have said or thought yet either. So as much as there can be like buzz before things open, no one's seen it. So it's, you can't know. So it's like purely your own thoughts and feelings are the things that you feel. And it's not like, oh, the second act opener sucks. Like, you don't hear those things in your head as you're watching. It's just like purely your own experience with it, which is such a magical thing that, especially with social media, like no one has anymore. So like to take that up and bottle it and like take advantage of that. And they're usually cheaper. So for me, like ball on a budget, go see it in previews.
Yeah. And also the truth is the first previews, usually a lot of fans, if there's original source material that they know it from that, or just people who are on a budget, or like big theater geeks that are like, I want to see this the first time. And the difference between like that and opening night, which is also wonderful, but that's usually like, the producers and family and
agents and
exactly. And it's amazing, and it's fulfilling a different need, but there aren't usually like fans there. Maybe a couple of fans can get a ticket. So the energy is just different, both fabulous, but really cool that you have the opportunity to see first preview or previews in general. Yeah. First or last preview, I would say, if you had to choose, choose.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's so fun. And I think the other like great thing about that show specifically too, is like you're saying, there is source material, and all the people haven't seen it on stage. Like the big 11 o'clock number is When You Believe, which there's been a million wonderful versions of that song, but the two actresses that sing it on the West End are phenomenal. And it's coming. Like you hear the violin go and you're like, here it is. We've been waiting the whole show. I mean, the rest of the music is stunning as well, but like that one, you're just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And like tears, all the feelings, and it's really stunning. And I think the cool thing about that one as well, like I could go on. I love Prince of Egypt. I could go on all day. And I have things that I would change about any show that I've seen as well. But I think the way it is, it's really well done, and the diversity in the cast and the crew, and it's excellent to see like so much representation on stage, which is amazing. And but the talent, just like the sheer talent of all those human bodies, like the dancing is unbelievable. Like I don't know how they do it. That's why I'm worried, like coming back post COVID, they're like all up in each other, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be like lots of sanitization and testing needs to happen. But yes, it's so stunning, and I really hope that more people get a chance to experience it, because it's so beautiful. And the story too, it's a story we all need. Like they overcame the plagues and they got out of Egypt. That's that's what we need right now.
It feels oddly relevant.
Yes. So yeah, but it's fun. Another cool thing about my job too is I do a lot with Wicked, which is just like, I saw it when I was much younger. And I remember like the excitement of, oh my God, we're going to go see Wicked when it first came out. And I think I've seen it. I must have seen it like 5 times now at this point, like from working there, and also like my personal previous history with the show. But it's one that I saw actually, this last thing I saw before the shutdown, because on my last night after opening night of Prince of Egypt, I saw Wicked in the West End just to check up on them. And so that's the last show that I saw pre-COVID or pre-COVID. And that show, just like the story is also like, it doesn't end. Like it's so fitting today as it was in 2000 and 2003 when it came out. So it's incredible, and I'm excited. Universal is making it into a movie too. So yeah, they've been talking about it for 10 years, but it's happening. It will happen. It will happen. We have a new director attached, and it's John Chu who did In the Heights, and he's phenomenal. So it's going to be great. I'm so excited.
I know. When I saw that he was getting on board, I was like, okay.
Yeah, all right, here we go. We're in business.
Right. So excited for In the Heights. I'm so excited for Wicked. Yes. Wicked is like one of my all-time favorite shows. Like, can sing the cast album front to back. It's so quotable.
Yeah, it is. And I love personally like the female representation in Wicked. There are so few shows that have 2 female leads, not just 1, but 2. So that's crazy. And it's just such a story of sisterhood and love. And Stephen Schwartz, who wrote the music for both, actually is funny because he calls Prince of Egypt the male version of Wicked, because it's like the story of basically it's like 2 brothers and 2 sisters. So yeah, but it's great. That's something I think probably could do better at every day is representation, not just gender, but everywhere, and backstage, front stage, front of house, whatever, wherever you are. But I think those 2 shows like help that along the way, and even seeing Alexander Billings as Madame Morrible before it closed, first trans female actress to play the role, which is great. So exciting things to come, I think, for both of those shows. So yeah.
Yes. And especially a show that talks about being discriminated against based off of the color of your skin. You would think that I love Wicked. I've loved everyone I've seen in it. I would very much like to see more people of color, and specifically more Black actresses.
Yes.
Who I feel like would relate to those characters on a deeper level. So
Absolutely. And I think, I have no say in the casting, but but also throwing that into the world. I think, and actually it's great. One of the 2 lead actresses in Prince of Egypt, Alexia Kadme, I just probably butchered her name, I'm so sorry, but she is phenomenal, and she plays Miriam in Prince of Egypt, and she was Elphaba in Wicked on the West End prior to that. And so I do think, that's something we've had a lot of conversations like in my small theater company, as well as like the Broadway community in general, of like representation and diversity. And I think people, I forget who said it, it might have been actually a TEDx. Someone was talking about a representation for disabled actors and actresses. And I think that is really interesting because you have so many able-bodied people playing disabled roles. And even if it's not like physical disability, but so like a mental disability or something, that like people who have experienced something can so much better play those roles. So even if it's not the exact same, like, they have this disease or something, but it's not the same as the character, but they can relate because they have felt those feelings, and even more so than an able-bodied actor who's just guessing and doing their best replication of it. Like, absolutely, put them in those roles, put people who can bring that to the table without traumatizing them, of course, because also there's a lot of that, like, to be very careful about it. But yeah, no, I think bring them all in, because we need that. We need those people to tell their stories.
Such a good point. We've been talking about that so much. I had Broadway Signs on the show last week and talking about that stuff too. Like when the Deaf West production of Spring Awakening was there, that was amazing. And to have Ali Stroker, and then she wins the Tony for Oklahoma. Such a big fan. Such a wonderful person. And every time I've met her, she's just been a delight. And I think it's really important. And it shouldn't be this case where you can just pinpoint specific shows or specific people, because it should be happening so much more often.
I can't wait until it's not a part of the conversation anymore. Not because like people don't care, but because it's just normal and it's not, it's just regular.
What an idea.
What an idea.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And so let's talk about, I saw on your website, there's Shakespeares Skull coming up.
Yeah, so that's the other podcast that's coming up. And I'm excited. It is, I'm still casting. So if you're in the LA area, put your thing on Actors Access. But it's a podcast based on a play. So I think this is another theater company that everyone's trying to go digital now. They saw the Ravages and they were like, oh, we have to make a podcast. So it's the play that is it's a farce that takes place in the 18th century. So it's about Shakespeare's Skull. That's why it's named that. But it's about a regular doctor guy in the 18th century London who then is recruited by this sort of eccentric, like well-known guy who's really interested in phrenology, which is like measuring the size of your brain and how it matches your intelligence. So the phrenologist recruits the doctor to grave dig Shakespeare's grave to get his skull for his research, and mayhem ensues. And so sort of like I was saying, actually, so I'm really excited about the play. It's really funny and very witty. But something that I, as a director, when I get to have the opportunity to make these choices, I always try to have at least like gender parity, if not more so, in things that I work on, because I think there are plenty of opportunities for a lot of men, but not as many for women and non-binary actors. So I think with this one, it's that when I looked at the roles, there's four men and one female character. And so in the casting of this, we're going to do an all non-male version of the play. So sort of a flip on the Shakespearean trope of having men play women. We're going to have everyone who's not male play all the male parts too. So I think it'll be fun. I'm excited to see what we come up with. And again, it's going to be challenging. There's a lot more characters. So getting those voices to be different, also to have them to have good, proper British accents, and playing with that a little bit will be fun. So yeah, stay tuned for that coming out in the summer.
So excited for that. Ooh.
Yeah.
I love all of these different takes on, if you're going to do Shakespeare, which has been done so many times, I love hearing these unique aspects and progressive aspects. And of course, it's making me think of Anne Juliet, which I love.
Me too.
I'm obsessed. To say the least. And that is also like very female forward and tells stories of the trans experience. And I think it's so important to be opening up these avenues for people to experience other types of scripture that hasn't necessarily been scripture, whatever. Yeah. Shakespeare words that aren't always available to them. It also makes me think of, I don't know if you saw the Shakespeare in the Park this past year, but Danielle Brooks, I think they filmed it actually. It might be on the public website or something like that. Definitely check it out.
I heard about it, but I didn't see it because I wasn't there.
It's a very hard thing to be able to just teleport somewhere. But.
Yes, I'm still working on the flu powder situation. So.
That was phenomenal. And they took the story and they modernized it, but it was still the same text. And so you're getting like these different aspects, and I'm getting that same vibe. And especially now to have the opportunity for an audio play, which after listening to the Ravages, I do really enjoy, because it's kind of like a book in that you're creating your own characters and you're imagining these like other worlds and these other time periods that it's obviously amazing if you see theater live or a movie or TV or whatever, but there is something so nice and almost childlike of creating your own adventure and picturing it however you're picturing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, that's what brings it more towards like theater. And Will in that little thing talked about like it's the purest form of theater, because that's what it used to be, audio dramas and radio plays, and that's how a lot of people would like experience theater. But I think I love it as a, like, while we're stuck in this not in-person virtual world, I love it as an escape for theater artists specifically, because it's like, I've done the Zoom plays and they're weird and they're fun. It's not the same. And I think because we're so used to everything on Netflix or whatever on TV, like looking beautiful and perfect, the suspension of disbelief is just so different with movies versus theater, which we could talk about Cats, how I don't really like Cats in general, but like, I think that's why the movie didn't do well. I don't like, nothing against Andrew Lloyd Webber, I love many of his other works, but Cats for me didn't land as a movie because it's like you have to suspend your disbelief that these humans are cats. And when you have like weird CGI things of them, which is great and cool that we have that technology, it's still weird. So I think it's just such a different experience. So I think that's why sometimes Zoom theater feels a little flat, because it's like, yes, we know we're all in our separate boxes in our homes, and this glass is not actually a wine glass. It's a whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not fully the same. So that's why I like the audio escape as an option for theater artists. So yeah, but there have been some very imaginative Zoom theater plays that I've seen too. So not to poo-poo them.
Totally. And I think it's a good opportunity to say, like, whatever is best for you is great, because we're in really tough times that are tough for everyone.
Absolutely.
And any job opportunity for someone in the theater industry is a great theater opportunity right now, right? Like, we are happy for all the things, but it's also good to be able to find what works best for you. And if you really enjoyed the Zoom aspect and being able to like find what you have at home and use that, amazing. I think there was James Monroe Iglehart did this like amazing all-star cast for The Nightmare Before Christmas, and that was phenomenal, because I wrote no one went out and bought anything. It was like whatever they had at home, they just like threw it all together, and that was hilarious. Yeah. But also, I love what you're saying about the audio play, and the, you know, getting out of your house right now safely with a mask is very important. And,
absolutely.
And
away from screens, because that's all we look at is screens, because we can't look at real people. So yeah, but I've done my fair share of Zoom plays too. I also did earlier this year the Cherry Orchard via Zoom, which was a lot of fun, and we tried to like make it our own too, like you were saying. So we put it in because of all the turmoil in our country, because for whatever reason now is when we've decided to have a reckoning about race and our treatment of Black people historically. It's been an issue for a long time, but so we decided to place our Cherry Orchard in like the South on a Southern plantation where for those of you who aren't familiar with the Cherry Orchard, the main character, one of the main, it's like ensemble cast, but one of the characters, his parents were serfs, and his father and grandfather were serfs of the people who live on this land. And then he eventually like he like makes his own way in life and then buys the land from them. Sorry, that was a spoiler but it's been around for a very long time. So for us, it was like our actor was Black, and he was the one buying the land back from the white Southern family that owned the land. So I think it's really cool to look, like you're saying, look at old works with new light. But we did it on Zoom because you can, and we made it work. And there's a bit of Zoom magic too that happens where you like pass something, and then the other actor's like, oh, I have the glass, or here's your coat, sir. And you know, then they magically have the coat. And so I think that's fun too. It's just different. It's not really theater, but it's like Zoom theater. It's a whole different genre.
Yeah, it really is. And so what's it like, because you've seen shows in New York, in LA, the West End, and you've been a part of a lot of these. Are there different little nuggets that we could hear about that are maybe unique to each place? Yeah,
I think I'll start with Broadway and the West End, because I think they're the most similar, but also pretty different, and you've experienced this too. But I think the one thing that confused me the most about going to the West End, like I grew up in New Jersey, would go across to New York all the time, and like wait in line for those really cheap tickets. Like I said, falling on a budget. London ticket prices are so much lower. Like it's just unbelievably, like it's not subsidized really, but it's just a lot more like the arts in general, I guess in the UK they have a Ministry of Arts and Culture. Like it's a lot more supported, and so they're able to keep ticket prices pretty low because people will go and see it. And I took advantage of that when I was there. I saw a show like every single night. If it wasn't Prince of Egypt, I saw And Juliet or Girl from the North Country or all these kind of all the ones that are coming to Broadway because they're great. And so I think the thing with London, so I was like, definitely take advantage of that. I'm sure you've heard this, but at one point, Hamilton, it was cheaper to fly to London to see Hamilton in London than it was to get a ticket in New York. So that's like nuts, because plane tickets are expensive. But London, I think it's fun because it's interesting as when you're in the audience at the end of the show. In New York, I think because you're paying so much for tickets, generally, everyone wants it to be the best show they've ever seen. So at the end of the show in New York, we've sort of gotten into this thing where everyone just stands at the end of every show, like whether or not it was good. And I think I'm probably a more discerning theater goer than most. My sister will always like turn to me and be like, "What'd you think?" And I'm like, "I don't want to tell you because I don't want to ruin your experience." Because, it was still a great show and they did a great job, but I just have opinions more than most people. So I don't always feel like I should stand, but I love that London, as a theater going audience, seems to be with me in that boat of like, you don't deserve my standing for you. Always. So there are shows that you'll go to and people will stand, but not all of them. And this is like such a cynical thing for me to focus on, but it's just the one that sticks in my brain of like the big difference between the two. So it's really cool because you can see really how did they like it? Did they not like it? Do they feel moved to stand? And it's feels more genuine. Whereas I feel like in New York, you're like, okay, it's time to stand now. And I've seen amazing things in New York too. So many of them deserve the standing ovation at the end, but that's like the big one for me. And then in LA, I'm a lot more involved in the intimate theater scene, which I know exists in every city, but I think I just didn't know about it when I was in New York, and London as much. And I think every city has that little fringe theater, which go support them because those people are the ones who eventually like climb up their way and eventually, sometimes go to Broadway or go to do other things. And commercial theater is really cool and they make a lot of really great things. But sometimes the local like fringe theaters do even more cool and experimental things because I don't have to worry about people paying $200 to go see their show. So check out off Broadway too if you're in New York. But the LA intimate theater scene is just so strong and such weird stuff is being made, but it's so cool. Like, I don't know, sometimes it's hit or miss, but you spend $20, so it's not a huge deal if like you go and see a play and it was weird and then you go talk about it with everyone afterward. But yeah, I think it's fun. The other fun fact I'll say between New York and London, or America and London, are like how they call the theater things, like the seats. So fun fact, the orchestra for us US people are the stalls. In London, which when you go there for the first time, you're like, what does that mean? And then the mezzanine is it depends. Sometimes there's like multiple tiers usually in London houses, but it can be like the balcony or the dress circle. I've heard both. And I know usually it's like mezzanine, then balcony for us, but it's like balcony and then dress circle. And then like sometimes upper dress circle or whatever. But so check your tickets, check the signs. Yeah. I feel like I've babbled a lot, so please rescue me.
This is great. It's actually making me reminisce so much because it's so true. There's so many different things, and at least our experience when on Broadway, it's usually like a 7-minute hold at the start. Like they factor that in, that people are generally late. But in London, I noticed that they were more prompt. That they were like, no, the ticket says 7 p.m.
Better be here. Oh, wait. The other great thing about London, you're probably going to say this, I was going to ruin it for you, but at intermission, they have ice cream. Yes. Why don't we do that? They have little they're so expensive because, okay, so here, you don't pay for tickets. You don't pay a lot for tickets, but you have to pay for your program, which sort of sucks because I like to keep the program as a memento. But they give you, they're so small. They're like tiny little Haagen-Dazs containers of ice cream, and they're like 8 pounds, which is like, I would pay 8 pounds for the full Haagen-Dazs like pint. But yeah, but people buy it, and it's like an indulgent little like in between break. I would love that. And alcohol flows in British theaters as well. I know people take advantage of it a little bit, but you might have like one drink. I was in a what was it? Oh, 9 to 5. I made the mistake of going to the Saturday matinee, I think, when I was in London. And there was like a hen party, which is sort of a bachelorette party of like older women who had the best time of anyone in the theater. They were sitting in front of me and I think they had gone to brunch, and then they were like, the drinks like kept coming to the seats and they were just having a hoot. So that was an interesting audience experience. But yeah, I think London also, in general in the UK, theater is less formal than it is in the US. So I think it's like you can do things like that. Like you can go out to brunch and be a little tipsy and then go to the show, and it's not like frowned upon. Whereas I feel like sometimes theater audiences feel more like older and stodgier in the US, where they're like, oh, you young people who are making noise over there. Like, don't worry, like people still do that in the UK. But yeah, it's just, I think theater is such more part of like the lifeblood of like the UK as a country and as a culture, which I wish it was in the US. I wish people felt like they could go into a Broadway theater and wear jeans. I do. Like, you know, you don't have to go dress up. It's just theater. Like, I don't know. There's a weird stigma here.
Yeah, honestly, that is such a good point, because I think it's good to say that we've grown as humans and individuals. But when I was growing up, I used to always think, if I saw someone who was dressed down, like jeans, whatever, but if I saw someone in like a t-shirt and sweats, I'd be like, this is the theater. It's Broadway. You know, and I always dressed up because to me it was fun to dress up, and I still do. But I also agree that, like, I mean, sometimes you get a rush ticket or there's like a last minute ticket and a friend's like, can you meet me? And you were not planning on going to the theater, and you should never not go to the theater because you're not dressed appropriately. But I 100% agree. It's like, I wish that I didn't have that mindset growing up, because I think that, like, if you want to dress up and have this be like your big night out or your birthday celebration or, you know, whatever it is, you should do that.
It can be, yeah.
But you shouldn't feel like it's forced to, and therefore it has to be this end all be all experience that if it's not perfect, it's a waste. Because theater tickets can be expensive. And I've spent many a time doing rush tickets and lottery and standing room because I'm grateful for all those experiences. But not everyone can, especially like we were talking about able-bodied experiences, and that affects so many aspects. And people are at work and they can't wait in the morning to do it. Wait, isn't London, I'm trying to think who else does this. Maybe London does this, that they have like late rush that you can go right before the show. And if they have tickets left over, that they have them like cheaper. I think
day seats. I think they call rush tickets day seats in London also, which is fun. Cause I was like Googling rush tickets London and like nothing was coming up because they don't call it that. But if you're ever in London also, I'm going to give a quick shout out. I have no idea who runs this, but Ticket Monkey is like a great resource to know about like all the day seat policies and who does what. And actually, speaking of and Juliet, I got to London my very first, like I flew there and landed, and it was a very long flight from Los Angeles. And I like sort of walked into the theater of and Juliet, and I was like, do you have any seats left for tonight? And they're like, yeah. And the show is in an hour. So I literally like grabbed my ticket, went to get something quick to eat, and then went back to the show. And yeah, so I think the thing is, because there's so much more theater and those sort of opportunities, if they have rush tickets left, like they will absolutely give it to you. You don't have to, it's not like from 9 to 10 a.m. or whatever. But yeah, I think I do wish there was a way to open up rush tickets. And I think I have such a weird, like digital lotteries are great because I think it does open up that avenue to more people, but at the same time, it opens up the avenue to more people. So you can't like guarantee that you're going to get a ticket because, I mean, I've seen Hamilton and I'm blessed to have seen it, but I've never won the digital lottery for Hamilton. Like literally millions of people enter that every single day. And it's really hard to be the person that wins. And so it's tricky because it does level the playing field a little bit. If you are able to log on to a phone or a computer at 10 a.m., whatever it is. So it's hard to think of like all the potential, like if someone who doesn't have internet access, they can't do the digital lottery, but they could go in person, but we're no longer offering that. But then someone who's not able-bodied, then they could be able to benefit from the digital lottery, but they're not in person. And, you know, so you can really go crazy thinking about all the things. But we have to do that. We have to think about, you know, all the people that are patrons and want to experience theater.
It's honestly so true, though, trying to make sure that you're accommodating for everyone, but then that means that you're not accommodating for some. Someone, just a quick shout out to Freestyle Love Supreme. When I saw them on Broadway, they did both rush tickets and digital lottery. And I thought that was the best of both worlds, because if you wanted to guarantee you could go early, and if you wanted to stay at home and like have dinner at home and think like, will I get a ticket today? And then you try the lottery and, I guess I'm going to go into the city. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that we've talked about all of our favorite experiences and whatnot, are there any nonprofits or charities that you want to give a shout out to today?
Yeah, I'll give two, I guess. So a lot of theater that we've been doing in Los Angeles, we've been having Color of Change as our charity partner. They're doing really, really great work. I highly recommend checking out their website. They are an organization that's like really media driven, entertainment driven, but sort of trying to educate people about like the problems with racial inequality and all sorts of, not even just racial, but all sorts of inequality that's going on in our country, as well as the world. And they're using media to educate people as well as they're lobbying for change. So they're like kind of hitting on all fronts. And I go on their website and look because they can say it better than I can, but they're doing really, really amazing work. So shout out to Color of Change. And also more recently, so we talk a lot about people of color and the Black community more recently, especially with all the injustice last year. But today and constantly more, this month, we've had a lot of injustice against Asian Americans. So a really great organization that is supporting them it's called Stop AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander Hate. So Stop AAPI Hate, and it's a really great place you can donate. You can also go read about some more of what they're doing. But there's like, if you go on their website, it's just like, did you see something, say something. So it's sort of like calling out people and making sure that people are like held accountable for their actions against people it's not deserved. And so just, look out for people. Doesn't matter where you come from or what your skin looks like or whatever. We're all people and we all deserve love and support. So yeah. There's so many more charities that are doing that work too. So if you have your favorite, like please support them because they could use it now and they know better where their communities need to be served than I do.
But I appreciate you sharing both of them because it's so important to be talking about the continuous injustice to the Black and Brown communities because it's gone on for our entire U.S. history, and we need to really look at that in so many ways, but also realize that so much has been happening to the Asian communities, and with the coronavirus, they've gotten so much hate unnecessarily. It's a virus. Okay. Yeah. We could get into
we could go into a full hour on that. That's okay.
That's okay.
But also I'll say too, so not specific charity, but if you have a local theater or organization that's trying to do things online, they still have expenses. Like my theater company, we have an in-person theater and we're a nonprofit too, but we have a theater that we're still paying rent for, even though we can't be in the space or together or be selling tickets for things. So like go support your local theater, go donate money to them. So any theater anywhere needs your help, needs your support, as well as the Actors Fund is like a really great organization too. I'm sure you know all about them, but they do really great work for the Broadway and like professional theater community as well, because there's hundreds of thousands of people that are out of work right now and need that support because they can't do anything. Like their jobs are gone and they're on pause. So yeah. Limbo says support.
Like donate where you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying that. And that also made me think of support your local food banks. I know I have a friend that works at the West Texas Food Bank, and especially what's happening in Texas right now.
Please support.
That's all that
they need all the help they can get.
Yeah, but that's always like supporting local, whether it's your local food bank, your local theater, your local this or that. Everyone does need help, but when you're also supporting things that you really feel passionate about, so if you can support your local theater right now, that's going to pay off later on when theater does have the opportunity to come back. Because like you said, the expenses don't stop just because coronavirus hit, and that's really unfortunate. And there are so many great causes, but really like looking at your own community can be beneficial for the growth and like sustainability.
It's all a cycle. It's an ecosystem,
Really
it's all connected.
Yeah. So where can everyone find you on social media? And is there anything that you came into today wanting to make sure to get out there?
I think we talked about it. I go listen to the Ravages. I keep saying watch because that's what I'm used to, but go listen to the Ravages wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. If you don't see it, please let us know on your platform. I'm also a co-producer and was the one responsible for getting the podcast on air. So if it's missing, let us know and we'll make sure it gets on your preferred platform. For me, I'm horrible at social media, but I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Sorry, Twitter. My sister loves you, but I can't figure you out. So it's just Sam_Squeri on Instagram. And I think it's just Samantha Squeri on Facebook. I don't know. But love to hear what you think. Love to hear your favorite shows you've seen on the West End or Broadway or your local theater, wherever you love to hear your thoughts on podcasts, what your favorite one is, heads or tails. I don't know. Let me know.
Perfect. Yeah. And I want to hear about that too. If you listen to it and you were like, okay, I agree. I like blah. That's cool because they're both great experiences. You can't go wrong. That's what I'll end with is
There
you
you
can't go wrong, heads or tails. They're both very different in the best way because the voices give you these different journeys. So maybe, listen to one and then a week later listen to the other one and compare notes. I'd love to chat about it.
It's like that taco commercial. ¿Por qué no los dos? Why not both?
¿Por qué no los dos?
So,
well, this has been wonderful. I appreciate you so much. And y'all can see, you can find me at BWaySHO. That's BWAYSHO everywhere. I am trying to do less social media, but it's very easy to just get swept away with it. But always happy to hear your thoughts, suggestions. If you have anything that you'd like to hear about on the series or something you think I should listen to or see, please message me. I love hearing about all these new theater experiences and beyond. And on that note, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been fun. I'm smiling. My cheeks don't hurt this much normally because it's just like so little human interaction, but it's wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. And I can't wait till we can actually meet in person and maybe see a show. We could get rush tickets.
Let's do that together. I will wait in line all day.
Yes, perfect. Well, have a great rest of your weekend and we'll see you at the show. Bye.
Bye.